Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, Mike C-roc. First of all, we always start the show with gratitude. I always like to thank you for listening. I always want to make sure that you're clear on the fact that I'm humbled for the opportunity to have this show and the fact that you actually tune in and listen and share this message and that I have in my audience, or I'm sorry, my guests have. And so first of all, thank you to you audience. And guys, also the Rocket Fuel book is now available for sale on MikeCroc.com/book. That's MikeCroc with no K.com/book. Go get it. Share it with your friends and family. Guys, it's going to be a bestseller. I already know it. I started out writing the book as a bestseller. So help me make that happen. And just appreciate all of you doing that. So today's show, guys, you know, we're all about finding out what people are made of. And I got an interesting fellow today because I went on his podcast and he actually did things differently, which was very refreshing and started making me think. You know, I was ready to tell my story and roll through it. And he stopped me in my tracks, taught me some things. And so I invited him on my show. And, you know, it's important to be different. And we'll get into that more. But Ryan Foland is a global keynote speaker, author, and brand consultant who teaches people how to build their brand, get featured in publications, and grow their social media following. Ryan's clients include New York Times bestselling authors, venture capitalists, and Fortune 500 executives. His book, Ditch the Act, there it is, helps executives and entrepreneurs navigate the waters of what to do in the right order to help them harness the power of vulnerability and authenticity to build a better, more relatable, more profitable brand. We're going to get into the other stuff here because there's a bunch of accolades here. And if you want me to list them, I will, Ryan. Or
no, we don't need to list that. We're good.
But I got to tell you, first of all, welcome to the show. And I'm going to ask you what you're made of, but I got to say something first. I've been practicing what you taught me.
Okay.
I've done probably since we've talked 15 other interviews of other podcasts that I was on. And when I talk about the problem that I solved, I got into it and I did it. And I want to thank you for teaching me that, man. It was powerful. And I shared it with my team
it's
as well.
working though. You're getting maybe a little slightly different response. It lands a little differently.
Absolutely. And I feel more confident in talking about it. Actually, I thought I was good before, and then now it's even better. So
you were good. I mean, you are good, and that's the thing. You know, when it comes to communication, I think we all need a slice of humble pie because it's constantly changing. The way that we want to present should be with the audience in mind, and the audience is always changing. And so I love the fact that we can always be better communicators. And as a communicator, I'm always trying to learn new things because it just is fun. So I'm glad that you were open-minded to it because there's a lot of tools available that you and I still have to learn. And we'll just continue to get better if we just do it, right?
Yeah, I committed when I was turned 40 to turn into a sponge and not be as hard-headed as I used to be and thinking I knew everything. And I have to stick to that because I preach it all the time. And I practice what I preach. And I'm open to that. And that's a great lesson for people. Again, I'm trying to be a role model for people. And hopefully you guys hear this, that all you hard-headed people out there, it's okay to be stubborn, but be a sponge. And so anyway, Ryan, what are you made of, man?
I'm made of ginger and freckles.
You gotta see that.
and it really is what I'm made of. As a kid, that was my nemesis. The fact that I looked a little bit different than everybody else. And the fact that I disappear for a summer and come back and have all these freckles that appeared with bleach blonde hair. And like, it was weird. And so in my early years, being an outcast and trying to belong was a really challenging time that I look back on, and it gives me a lot of fuel now. But it is now something that I've reclaimed. And like ginger is part of my brand. I say I'm a speaker, author, and a ginger. And I thrive also off of positive energy. And so I associate ginger with a bit of energy. I'd spoken in Nigeria 2 days ago. I've spoken in Ghana, and I love approaching communities who are open-minded and wanting to learn. And I got a new nickname, and it's called Bra Kwikwe Ginger, because ginger in different African languages essentially means like high energy and some sort of like powerful movement. And then bra just stands for like a big brother or a mentor. And so Kwikwe is an inspirational part. So like I'm Bra Kwikwe Ginger. Like ginger's part of my DNA, bro. It's what gets me going.
Love it. Little to a lot of people know that don't follow me, that just hear the podcast. Tiny, my daughter Sophia, we call her Tiny. She's all over social media now. She's 8 years old and she's a ginger. And I'm Italian to the core, both sides, everything. And I thought my daughter was going to be dark hair, olive skin. And here she comes out with this auburn. Now, my wife, granted, my wife has like an auburn colored hair. So
she's got some ginger, right?
Thank God, because, you know, the UPS, FedEx, all these different Amazon, like they're coming to my house all the time now. So I wasn't sure. No, my wife's great. She's going to kick my ass for saying that. But
well, I'm stoked for you and your daughter and your wife and for everyone listening, because the nice thing is we can all be a bit more ginger. We can all claim it, whether you have the physical appearance or not. But I'm trying to just get it to represent something that's a positive force.
I love it. Now, how do you use your past as your fuel? Like, give me some specifics on, you know, if you're getting through some tough times or having some setbacks, like what is your go-to mental state, or fill me in on that?
Yeah. So my mental state usually tries to find a comparable incident to leverage. And the ironic thing is that there are certain things that keep seeming to happen to me. And in particular, those things are usually the ones that I get hit hardest when they go down. And a lot of it goes back to me wanting to trust people because I had this issue with belonging earlier. And this example that I'm referring to is with business partners, with people who I choose to work with, that I essentially marry into as a relationship. And I think that when I get hit in the face the hardest is when a relationship that I've invested in shows red flags and creates sort of a junction to where you either turn and walk away, or you double down and reinvest. And so I think that that's something I could speak to. And the most recent thing that has been the most challenging for me, that I've needed the most high octane fuel, is the fact that if you look at my book, there's two names on there. It's Ryan Foland and it's Leonard Kim. Now, Leonard Kim, I met at Keith Ferrazzi's house. And are you connected with Keith Ferrazzi yet? Do you know about him?
No.
He was one of the youngest CMOs, like to run a Fortune 500 company early on. He's the godfather of networking. He's got 3 great books. Who's Got Your Back? One of the best networking books out there.
I heard of that book.
Yep. And then the next, or his most recent one it's right here on my shelf. It's escaping right now. I will get back to it. But he wrote the forward in this book, and I met Leonard at his house. Fun backstory behind that. But I met him in a situation where Keith set up this environment of candor. And Keith is all about bringing people together and sharing not necessarily what goes right, but also what's wrong. Mm-hmm. So probably 75 entrepreneurs, all sort of young and scrappy, in his house in the Hollywood Hills. And we all have numbers on the bottom of our plates, and we meet at the different tables. And instead of introducing yourself like, hey, I'm Ryan, this is why I'm awesome and why I'm great, it's, I'm Ryan, this is what's going wrong professionally and personally. So like, he got real with us as he explained it. We're like, wow, that's pretty powerful. So I explained that I was trying to speak, but nobody wanted to hire me. And I had this book that I wanted to write, and I'm not a good writer. Everybody ran around. This guy stood up and said, hey, I've got 10 million reads on my content. Everybody wants me to speak, but I'm not a good speaker. And my girlfriend just broke up with me. So I was like, this guy and I should connect.
Yeah.
The first thing I said to him afterwards, I'm like, hey, bro, I was at your table, I can help you if you can help me. And I was like, I can help you become confident with speaking. You help me with my writing, like it could work. Fast forward, he really did help me out, and I helped him out. We created a company called Influence Tree. We ran it for 4 to 5 years. We got all these amazing clients, did all this great work, wrote this amazing book about being honest and being vulnerable and sharing what goes wrong. And as a result of writing the book, I really realized how unhealthy the relationship was. So here I am finishing a book published by McGraw-Hill. This is a baby that is born into the world. And the relationship that we have, I determine as a result of writing this book and really getting true with myself, it was time for me to leave. And that was a difficult decision, but he also made it very difficult for me leaving, which just made the whole situation more intense per se. He went against what we talked about in the book and shared everything publicly as it was happening. I took the higher road and just was dealing with the experience and my personal challenges with it and my financial challenges, all these things with it, but not on a public platform, which reinforced like that I made the right decision. And I've never been happier. I've never been healthier, but this last year, bro, has been crazy because I published a book. It took 2 to 3 years to write. Big deal, right? You know this, like your book. And then we get it out there and it's like, I no longer work with the person I wrote the book with. So for me, over this last year, and there's still a couple things that I'm trying to settle up, that somebody's not being as responsive and as fast as I would expect when somebody has left the company a year ago. And I have a lot of respect for the guy because he's helped me learn a lot, but he helped me learn how powerful it is to live my own truth. And the one thing, the fuel that has helped me more than anything, aside from my loving wife and honestly like crying and getting emotion out and working through it physically, is looking back to the last relationship that didn't work from a business partner standpoint, and how at that moment it was the worst thing in the world, but I got over it and there was so much more traction after that. And then the business partnership before that, it actually went down in ruins, ended up in an FTC investigation of which I am good and he is not. And that was the worst thing that had ever happened to me at that point. But I was able to come out of it. And so for me, the fuel of what seems to keep me going is fuel based on this like similar parallel situations in the past. So a psychologist in me would be like, well, Ryan, why do you keep hanging out with it? Why do you keep connecting with these people that are not good for you? And I think it's a combination of wanting to trust too soon, an eagerness to feel belonging and connect and work towards a common goal, but also that I wasn't fully being honest with myself in those relationships.
Right.
And I've never felt more honest with myself. I've never felt more me. And I've sure it's awkward and I'm the optics are still weird. Hey, I wrote a book. Yeah, it's only a year old and it's like in bars, it's all this stuff. And like, yeah, it's well, I do have I mean, my co-author had a lot to do with it. And he's an amazing writer and this is a great project. But it's like I've had a divorce and I'm co-parenting a child. But I'm cool with that because it's what works for me.
Yeah.
So that was a long ass answer to a short question.
But there's a lot to unpackage there, man. Here's the thing. I gotta go over a couple of things. First of all, the exercise that they had, think about this for a second. Most people are so full of piss and vinegar and want to talk about all their accolades and all their accomplishments. Like I didn't announce yours in your bio here, but you were more vulnerable there and shared some vulnerability and challenges that you're dealing with. And you know what? A real mastermind is not someone where you go somewhere and the guy sits there and just lets you answer questions to him and gives you a bunch of advice and all that. It's people sitting around sharing the challenges that they're having and getting advice and input from people in that group. And I'm in one right now with Greg Reed. I don't know if you know Greg Reed, but it's been a phenomenal experience so far of people doing that same thing. Now, on the other hand, what I want to ask you a question on, just like you did for me, I want to offer some just advice from me and take it for what it's worth. But when I went through this situation a few times, the one with my father and the one with an owner of a company that we worked for 3 or 4 years ago, on the outside, it would appear that this guy stole from us. This guy was dishonest, greedy, and took things and just make our company crumble. And I lived with that anger for a period of time, but then I started to think to myself, you know what? What did I do? Like, you know, most people won't see this. They'll look at it and say, Mike, C-roc, you had nothing to do with that. You did everything. You're a great dude. You're responsible. You're a leader that, you know, go all through this stuff. But no. What could I have done differently? Because you know what? There's definitely something. Now, whether it even comes down to just not going to that party in the first place, something as simple as that, or a multitude of other things, it really doesn't matter the actual thing. It's the fact that, you know what? I'm going to be ridiculous with myself. And I'm going to say it's my fault 100%. The gentleman that's on that book, he's the way he is. It is what it is. And there's 3 things that Greg Reed taught me that he learned from billionaires was there's the CPC. There's clues, patterns, and choices. And this is the way Greg tells it. If you go on a date with a girl and she shows up late, that's a clue, right? The next time it happens and she does it again and again, it becomes a pattern. The third C is choices. And we have the choice to continue in that or not. And that was huge to me when Greg told me that. I'm like, holy cow, that's so simple. And billionaire people told him that. That's how they operate. Clues, patterns, and choices. So I would just encourage you, and you probably already know this, but I'm just throwing it out there for the audience. Like, no matter what, take responsibility. No responsibility goes to the other person whatsoever on your end from you. It's all 100% means all me, nothing, not 1%, 2% to the other person. And that's changed my life, man. And, it's a crazy thing to think until you actually start doing it and experiencing it. But I don't know. That's
okay.
My 2 cents.
I actually would like to ask you a couple questions. Honestly, I listened to all of that. One thing just to share, when you were talking about your experience with your prior business partner, I felt my whole body just could almost like I'm a wrestler and Muay Thai, like a martial artist, and everything in my body in that moment. I wasn't trying to. It just went, oh, and I was just like, wow. So it was just interesting to be aware of like this subconscious reaction to just like, oh, there's so much anger.
Yeah.
But I am really trying to take responsibility for the decision that I made. And I'm really trying to not place the blame on him. But what you're making me think is that there could be modifications to it. Because I really don't want to be somebody who said it's their fault. I would rather say it was me and I decided the relationship wasn't healthy for me. So in even communicating that, there are things that I would take responsibility for not doing. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say not going to that party, because that's kind of an excuse to wipe the whole thing clear.
Yeah.
Right? That's the easy way out, right?
Yep.
Because my mom always said, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, oh, what a world it would be. Yeah. And every time I would lose a hockey game and she'd be like, something, I'd be like, but if ifs and buts are candies, and so it's like the goals will go in. So the goals are in, and I'm really proud of the book because it's part of my journey, right? I don't want to. My baby is still the most beautiful thing to me,
right? But
how does one take 100% ownership without almost coming across like, oh no, nothing was him. Like it almost feels a little passive aggressive in the extreme part.
Yeah.
And then for my question is like, is there value in me sharing the things that I was responsible for to have the clue that maybe led to the pattern that led to the choice? So is that a way to communicate it?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I look at it like this. I'm investing a lot of businesses right now. And what I think to myself is I tracked what I want and focus on, but I got to be okay with the worst case scenario. So if I take $150,000 invested in a business, I got to think to myself, okay, the worst case scenario is I'm going to lose the $150,000. Okay. Get that out of my head. I'm good with it. Let's go. Now I made that choice. So if something happens and I lose $150,000, I made the choice to get into business no matter what happens after that. That's the thing like the way I think. And Grant Cardone taught me this. 100% responsibility gives me the control. And otherwise, if I give 1 ounce of responsibility to anybody else in my mind, God bless you. What happens to me at that point is I'm out of control and I become the puppet instead of the puppet master. And so I'd rather be the puppet master, even if I do something wrong. Me being in control and taking responsibility for it, I want to be the cause of it because of the fact that I can fix it. But if somebody else is the cause of something, they're in control to be able to fix it, except for me just cutting them off. So,
okay. So let me ask you, like, reverse sort of 313 on me here and help coach me on some of the specifics to say, because this is a challenge for me. I was just on a radio show in the East Coast this morning, and right now it's very hard for me to bridge this where it's like, yeah, I have a co-author on the book, but we're no longer in business. I don't work for that company. And so do you have any suggestions of like a short, high level way to address that? This guy, I respect him, but I no longer work with him. And that's my fault, not my fault, but I'll take responsibility. How pretend that you're an author. Okay. Do you have a co-author on your book?
No, I don't.
Pretend that you do.
But I can pretend. Sure.
Pretend you do. And then you just launch it. You've invested all this time, this money, and this energy. Everybody knows you as this. And then you decide that after enough clues and patterns, you make a choice to leave the company, and leave the company, just walk away to be as peaceful and like, I'm just moving forward in my own direction. And I have you on a podcast. I'm like, hey, so I actually see your name and somebody else on here. Like, what's the deal with that? Your advice is welcome here.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So when I got into writing this book, I tell the story about how you told it and how you got involved with the person and then from there, we got this book together. We're so proud of this book. And, you know, unless you want to go in and teach a lesson about the clues and patterns and choices tip situation, if you're not trying to do that, you know, we've gone on our separate ways right now. We're on our different ventures and excited to, you know, he's grown in different avenue or whatever the thing is.
Well, I could say he's grown in a different way, and that's up to, you know, that can be up to be determined.
It's not a marriage that you have to say we grew apart. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what I'm confused, because I haven't been divorced and like,
yeah. So I wouldn't take the emotional route with it, man. Like I would take the emotion part out of that part and be like, look, we put a great project. Are you proud of the book? How it came out?
I'm so proud.
And his part of the book too, like you're proud of how it all came together.
I think what's unique is that we're so different that it creates a really unique perspective in the middle.
So talk about that. Yeah, I would talk about that part and say, you know, and now we're on to different projects. Because look, here's the thing. I have projects right now that I'm working on that have nothing to do with the mortgage business. I have projects I'm doing outside of my partners in the mortgage business, and we do not talk about those things. And then we're doing things together with the other partners in this business, have nothing to do with the mortgage business. No connection whatsoever. Just keep the emotion out of it. And share the fact that, man, two different people came together and put something like this together. And then none of the other part even matters, except unless somebody asks to learn about a situation. So what did you learn about co-authoring a book with someone? Like, was it difficult? What challenges did you deal with? And then you just share it with the emotion out of it. Now, because it seems to me like you're struggling with that emotionally and you're still hurt by it and you're letting that come out. Once you really take 100% responsibility and release all that, man, let me tell you something. The owner of the company that we used to work for, I used to call him an uncle because he was a friend of mine's uncle-in-law. And I think deep down he's a good dude. He just doesn't understand what I understand about life and people. And when it all went down with our business and we saw some money not going where it was supposed to and whatever the case is, and the culture was dying, I was really angry, man. I couldn't believe it. I felt betrayed, because I was sticking up for him and other people were seeing the things, the clues and the patterns. And I just would not believe it, you know, because I was like a company man, loyal. And I felt betrayed too, besides the money part of it. I was betrayed and it hurt me for a little bit. But then what everything changed was I said to myself, you know what? I'm not dealing with the court and legal. That stuff doesn't move too fast. What's going to matter to me is my success going forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show people how you can, and it's the same thing I did with my dad throwing $100 bill at me back in the day. The same thing I thought to myself, I'm going to show people how you can come from something like this. And then I got a story to tell. Now, when I tell the story, I'm not going to bash the person because the person obviously doesn't know right from wrong. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it just is what it is. Again, I'm not going to control.
And you can't control their actions, nor could I have controlled their actions. So
that's it. I can control the interaction that I have with them, the emotional response that I have with it. And other than that, man, I can influence them and try, but at the end of the day, I got to work on me. And now it's my turn to take that, convert it into rocket fuel and explode, man. And not let anything stop me, because if I do, they win. That's what goes through my head.
Right.
So, but like if somebody like that, my dad, anybody came back to me and said, hey man, I could use some help. You know, I would be cautious of what that help would be, as long as it didn't involve me getting emotionally tied up into it, and still offer to encourage or lift someone up. Because at the end of the day, man, that's who I am and who I choose to be. And so I would encourage you, man, just to like really, really fake it till you make it kind of thing with this 100% responsibility, and start focusing on the fact of, okay, what could I have done differently? And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. I'm just taking the responsibility for it and moving on and being proud. And don't let the book being launched and out in people's hands and everything suffer because of any emotional, you know, conflict that you guys
right.
have.
And that's a big fear of it. And it's just like, you know, for a while it was hard to even see the book. There's like that much of but you are right in taking the emotion out of it. That's a very hard thing to do for me, but I do like the way that you're framing it, in that we are just going in different directions right now. And this is an exciting project because
Well, and Ryan, here's the thing too. When you say it's a hard thing to do for me, well, like I think about this and I catch myself all the time. when you say that, you basically allowing yourself off the hook if you don't do what I just recommended.
Right. Cognitive dissonance, buddy. I'm looking for the data to prove what I think. Thoughts become words, words become things. So think the thoughts you want. I tell people this.
And your actions become your legacy, man. And so Brandon Dawson's is a mentor of mine, and he's just understudy of John Maxwell and Dr. Robert Anthony, Beyond Positive Thinking. This is one of my favorite books, by the way. And I've just been studying this stuff, and it's ingrained in me now. And when I say it, to me, it's like old hat. But then I come across someone and that knows it, and it's the same thing for me. And I don't always live it. Like
it's the cobbler's son sometimes doesn't have the shoes, and you're like,
it's good. Yeah, it's good to be reminded of it, man. So look, I'll continue to talk to you offline about that even further if you want to. But I want to get into this 313 so my audience can hear about it. I want to hear about Ditch the Act. So which one do you want to start with?
You know, we're on it. So let's create the flow and let's talk Ditch the Act, because it's there. And the 313 is a part of the book. So that's a good transition.
Sounds good. Let's roll. So tell me about Ditch the Act. What's it about?
Think of it in 3 parts. Leonard and I essentially show by example what it means to ditch the act. It's opening up and sharing the stuff that he nor I really, you'd think would want to share with the world. But in sharing it, it was not only super, it was not only introspective for me, learning more about myself and realizing who I am, but it shows, as a reader, you read that, it's hard to not connect with us, because there's similar strings in there. There's life experiences that you can relate to. And so the first book really just shows by example what it actually looks like. And then the middle of the book is why you should consider doing it. And we show examples of people from all different industries, research and how being vulnerable makes people see themselves in your story, which helps them to get to know you and trust you, which is different than that. Hey, look at me, I'm a badass, and look at my bio and everything's amazing. Here's my accolades. It's like, that just sort of, that doesn't connect you. That almost can push people away.
Yeah.
And then the third part of the book is exactly how to do it. And it's 8 steps, starting with your positioning and ending with knowing that by stacking small successes on top of each other, you can get to where you want to go. And you know how this works. It's just following a sort of a system that steps you through it.
Right.
So it's a way to put yourself out there, showcase your expertise, so people decide for themselves whether you're an expert or not.
Love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Where can they find the book?
Ditchtheact.com.
Oh, that's simple. Was that a hard domain to get? Was it hard to get, or was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Get out, ditch the act. That seems like a catchphrase that would have been caught up by somebody already.
Yeah, well, and you know what, the book actually, and this is an interesting transition to really what the 313 is. My next book, I have decided, and I'm in the process of pitching McGraw-Hill right now. And if they don't want it, I'll find somebody that does. It's called Ditch the Pitch. And that is exactly what the 313 is. It's ditch the pitch. Stop worrying about your pitch, and just understand the problem you solve, your solution in your market, and know that the words that you choose to use might not necessarily land exactly how you think in someone else's head.
Right.
It's about getting somebody interested in what you do without even telling them what you do. The more you talk, the less people listen. The less you talk, the more people ask questions. Questions leads to actual conversation, which leads to curiosity, which leads to connection, and is there. And so Ditch the Pitch is really a deep dive into the 313, the 313 sandwich, a way of saying less and getting people more interested.
So let's role play a little bit. Let's role play a little bit. So what do you do, Ryan?
I do a lot of things, but what I think I'm most passionate about is a very singular problem that I'm solving.
And see, guys, what he's doing is he's leading me into asking, what problem is that? I can't just walk away. Like, whatever. Oh, that's nice, Ryan. Good. Like most people say what is that problem, Ryan?
Well, the problem is if you can't get people interested in you / your idea, then your startup is never going to start. You're never going to get the career that you want. And there's a whole line of things that will result to end up with you in a spot that you could have been otherwise, if only I need to stop. That's the problem. See, I even want to go into the solution. Right. The problem is if you can't communicate what you do or what your product is, then it's all for naught.
So you state the problem, right? Like you said,
Yep.
and then how do you end that segment before I respond again?
Yeah, just end it. And then there's this like all of a sudden, oh, well, I could ask you if you think that that's a problem.
Do you feel that's a problem, or have you experienced that?
Yeah. Do you think that's a problem? Do you have a
Yeah, I have that. I think, and I've seen it a lot with people. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see,
So
I should have asked if it's a problem in general first, and then to which is easier for you to agree. And then I'd say, well, do you have that problem? Do you have a hard time communicating what you're doing?
Yeah, at times. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, not anymore, because I'm studied up on the 313.
Right.
And I have
Well,
other
good.
people.
So I would be able to say then I could have helped you out. Right.
Yeah. Right. And then so I say, yeah, I do deal with that sometimes. And there's people around me that I know that have that issue. How do you solve it? Like what's this? What do you do to fix it?
Well, I've got a simple framework called the 313. It helps you explain what you do in 3 sentences, 1 sentence, and 3 words.
3, 1, and 3. Huh. That's where the 313 comes from. That makes sense. So you teach that, or do you have courses? Like, what do you do? Like, do you consult people?
Yes. So there's a podcast that I have called the 313 Challenge, where I bring people on and I step them through the process. It's a process where you do expose yourself a bit, and you are publicly showing some of those weaknesses, which is fun for the right people. But for those who don't want to do it publicly, I do a private podcast, and it costs $313. And we have the same fun that we do, the same epiphanies, the same messaging, but it's never publicly aired.
Oh man, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I have a keynote around it. I do workshops around it. I think a lot of people are doing the right things in the wrong order. And I think one of the important first steps is figuring out how to explain what you do.
And now, so at the end of the day, monetizing with that, like you said, 313, $313 sometimes for people that don't want it publicly. But beyond that, like, what do you do for a living besides being an author and the 313 podcast?
Well, I am a professional speaker, so everything leads to that direction, which means I get paid to either keynote or run multi-day workshops.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Then and that's what's funny is that's what I enjoy doing the most. I actually have a full-time job at a university where I run communications for a large department that oversees student success for thousands of students. But for me, I enjoy speaking the most. I enjoy large audiences, small audiences, this type of stuff.
The energy too, right? Yeah.
And so everything that I do, from my World of Speakers podcast to the 313 to blogging to tweeting, it all for me leads to somebody wanting to have a speaker and then thinking or finding me and hiring me to be there. And if you want to think like longer term, I would love to do that, but charter 5 to 10 yachts in the Caribbean or in the BBIs, and you pay hundreds of thousands, if not more, to come and spend a couple of weeks with me. And it's sort of an immersion in learning how to speak and sail.
So what's stopping you from doing that?
Well, COVID right now.
Okay. That's true. Yeah.
But
hold on a second. Despite COVID, I'm just going to let you know that I've been on a yacht just recently, probably in the summertime in Miami with a smaller group, and it was safe and everything. We just did precautions, so it's still available to you.
Okay, well, see, there you go. Right, I'm limiting my own beliefs as
let's make it happen, man. Figure out what's stopping you, and then remove. I always have the same: remove all obstacles. Like what I want to do something, man. Let's go. I
want to either be speaking or sailing. And it's funny you talk about fuel, because for me, fuel is just like the natural wind that I'm taking advantage of however I can. Where I'm working towards being able to either speak or be sailing, or go speak in Europe and sail there for a few months, and then go speak somewhere else and sail there for a few months. So I feel like I'm in a good direction, but you helped me to remove some obstacles.
Let's go. I'm here for you anytime, Ryan. And I appreciate you being on the show. How can the audience get in touch with you?
Go to my website, which is ryan.online.
Ryan.online, guys. Ryan.online, or go to ditchtheact.com. Go get the book. Let's support our guests, guys. Ryan, thank you so much. I enjoyed being on your show. Thank you for coming on here. It's one of my favorite interviews, actually. We got vulnerable and behind the curtains kind of thing for doesn't happen that often. So we ditched the act today.
We did. And you know what I'm going to do right after this?
What?
I'm going to go to your website and buy your book.
All right, let's go, man. Hey guys, so that's a great segue into what I end with, man. Guys, the Rocket Fuel book. Go get Ryan's book first, then go get Rocket Fuel at MikeCroc.com/book. That's Mike C-roc with no K, C-R-O-C, MikeCroc.com/book. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Ryan, thank you for being here. Thank you for the connection that we have now. I feel like we're connected in some way that we can help each other here in the future. And guys, you've been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy C-roc. Go subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, your favorite podcast platform, or you know what? Matter of fact, watch it at YouTube at Mike C-roc, Ciorrocco. Until next time, be good.